What's up, everybody? It's your brother Matthew here. Thanks for checking into the YouTube channel. Hey, let's have a little bit of fun today, shall we? Is it okay to have a little bit of fun on this YouTube channel? Let me ask you this. Do you remember Al Gore? Okay, he ran for president. He was the former vice president of the United States. Are you old enough to remember Al Gore's claim that he invented the internet? That's right. At least at one point, Al Gore claimed that he, in his brilliance, invented the internet. That now maybe that quotation got blown out of proportion. I don't know. All I'm saying is that this comes from the same guy who more recently has predicted that the state of Florida would become the new Atlantis as it sinks to the bottom of the ocean because of environmental concerns. And like most false prophets, of course, he had to keep pushing it off and pushing it off and pushing it out, recalibrating his dates until maybe someday something closely approximating the reduction of Florida shores will actually take place. Who knows? But thinking about Al Gore's claim to invent the internet, I came across a very interesting miscellany from Jonathan Edwards the other day as I'm doing research for my Jonathan Edwards study Bible. Now, I have to quote my friend here, actually cite my friend, Tony Walker, who originally pointed out this miscellany to me some couple of years ago, perhaps. But it's miscellany 262. And here it's very interesting that Jonathan Edwards says something that kind of sounds like he conceptualized in his mind something that might approximate the internet. Okay, now don't let me claim too much here. I'm not claiming that Jonathan Edwards invented the internet like Al Gore seems to have claimed. But certainly he saw something kind of in a prescient manner here about humankind's ability to communicate at scale around the world and instantaneously. Now, I'm not sure where I would place this in the Jonathan Edwards Study Bible because he's talking here about the millennium. And let me go ahead and show you the quotation here. We're going to look at a couple of pieces from it. "'Tis probable that this world shall be more like heaven in the millennium in this respect, that contemplative and spiritual enjoyments, and those things that more directly concern the mind and religion, will be more the saints' ordinary business than now. There will be so many contrivances and inventions to facilitate and expedite their necessary secular business, that they shall have more time for more noble exercises, and that they will have better contrivances for assisting one another through the whole earth by a more expedient and easy and safe communication between distant regions than now." Pause right there. Edwards is a post-millennialist, and in his view, the world is going to get better and better. It's going to improve in terms not only of scientific advance in medicine and technology, but also in terms of its faithfulness. As a post-millennialist, Edwards sees the church being increasingly strengthened over time, until such a time as there's a great satanic revolt, and then Christ will come to judge the world. But Edwards was very positive in his outlook on the development of humanity in terms of technology. His broader point here is, of course, in the millennium, people will have more time to think about the things of the Lord. Their Bible study will be deeper. Their understanding of theology and doctrine will be all the more rich because they have more time. Why will they have more time to study the things of the Lord? Well, because of all the inventions that humanity will make to facilitate their work, to make it easier. And of course, Edwards could not have possibly imagined what we can do in terms of agriculture today with some of the technology we have with our huge tractors and field equipment that we have that make planting and harvesting so much easier than in Edwards' day. Even think about how difficult it would be to clear a field with hand tools and things like that, not having motorized gas-run chainsaws and things like that. So Edwards is basically making the point here that as humanity continues to make new and new inventions, their physical labor, their secular employments, he calls them, will diminish, and therefore they'll have more time to contemplate the things of the Lord. Now, check this out. This is what he says here, continuing on in the same miscellany 262. "The invention of the mariner's compass is one thing by God discovered to the world for that end." So he gives an example here. "And how exceedingly has that one thing enlarged and facilitated communication? And who can tell but that God will yet make it more perfect, so that there need not be such a tedious voyage in order to hear from the other hemisphere, and so that countries about the poles need no longer to lie hid to us, but the whole earth may be as one community, one body of Christ." So he gives an example here. The best thing that he can come up with is something like a compass, right? The compass has the ability to tell direction, therefore making any sort of sea navigation any sort of traversing of the vastness of the earth much more easy, right? Because you wouldn't have to depend on calibrating winds and things like this. You know which direction you're generally going. It's easier to look at a compass than it is, for instance, to track the stars, even though people got very good at that. But he's only extrapolating from that and saying, imagine all of the possible technologies that could come about so that humanity will be able to communicate all around the world, perhaps even instantly. Okay, so that there need not be such a tedious voyage in order to hear from the other hemisphere. Okay, well, how would they possibly communicate? He couldn't even imagine phone lines and things like that, undersea cables and whatnot. But Edwards is at least conceptualizing the possibility that there might be vast abilities to communicate from one place to the other. Even thinking with his example of the compass, what Edwards would think about something like a GPS device, which is just incredible in its ability. I mean, you ever plug an address into the GPS device and there you are, just instantly, even mindlessly following the road signs, and you're just kind of cruising to where you're going. You've never even been there before. It's so easy because you have the GPS device. Well, that's just one application. And it is interesting to think about how much Edwards could have done if he would have had a simple laptop computer or even a cell phone to communicate. These things were far, far in advance of Edwards' time, of course. But he does let his mind run wild there a little bit in Miscellany 262 about what kinds of devices might make our lives easier. But isn't that interesting? That while Edwards thinks that the main point of these inventions, in terms of God's sovereignty and providence over all these things, would be that humanity has more time to contemplate the glories of Christ and think on doctrine and study their Bibles. It's interesting how the more we invent technology, it seems like it gobbles up more and more of our time. So one thing Edwards did not anticipate is how much time we would waste with these devices that we are able to fabricate and to invent. Well, I don't know that Al Gore invented the internet, and I certainly am not claiming that Edwards did it either, but it is interesting to think about how Edwards presciently imagined the types of global communications that humanity might have in the millennium. Anyways, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for checking in. I do love you lots, and we'll talk to you later.